We've come quite a long way. So there's a lot of cool things that we can do now working with models and making it super easy to work with models. And I'm starting to get towards the dream where prototyping apps in this way is super, super fast. But there's a big sort of gaping hole at the moment, which is working with files and images. Because you still need a backend, or at least with my current setup, you still need a backend to work with files and images. And I'll quickly show you this. Part of the ecosystem that I want to build here involves working with files and images. You can see there's quite a few things I want to build in this ecosystem so that you can prototype and then easily switch from a prototyped app to something that is more production ready. And one of those things is a Vue Media Library type thing. And I think I've got something else here related to working with files. Yeah, Vue File as well. And so we're not going to build Vue File in this video, but we're going to build kind of like an introductory to what that might look like. I've got up here a life cycle of new packages that I create. And one of the first things in that list is a front-end only implementation. So basically just an implementation that works, inside of a Quasar project or inside of a plain Vue project. So that's what I want to do in this video. I want to explore the concept of working with files and see if we can make that happen. And I've actually already done a little bit of this. So if we come in here and give something an image name, this is a little prototype that I built, and call it, for example, flowers. And then I drag and drop a file that I've got here of some flowers. I haven't actually tested this earlier, so there's probably something else that I need to do there. Maybe I have to drag and drop the file first, or I might have been developing it. Okay, well, let's have a little look at this. Yeah, here we go. Store URL Quasar. And then we've got an index page here. And in the image storer, we're modeling a blob file. Okay, and so when that gets updated, we tell it to store. Okay, so it looks like the only thing that it does right now is you give it a name. For example, some dash flower dash image. And let me just grab a flower image now and drag it on there. Flowers. Okay, and it looks like it's missing an object store. So maybe I'll just wipe all of this and then refresh it, because I think that might be what's going on. It's expecting an object store. No, all right, so let's jump into that. So we got store image. So we have DB there. Is there a point where it creates the database? Man, I find working with IndexedDB a little bit complicated at times. Yeah, okay, so it's meant to create an image DB, or at least it opens an image DB there. So let's jump into application and see if it looks like that's not being created. So really we want to check if it's created, and if it's not, go ahead and create it. And since we're stubbing this out, I like to just use ChatGPT to figure out how to do some of this stuff. So we're just going to say using indexed DB, write me a function that checks if what do they call it, an object store? Yeah. Object store exists. If it doesn't, it should be created. So maybe like ensure store exists. Gee, that's a lot of code just to do that. I'm sure there's an easier way, but that's all right. We're prototyping for now. Check and create object store. And we'll just go ahead and create a function for that. Doesn't need to be great, doesn't have to be efficient. We're just sort of checking that all of this stuff is possible. Then with store image, we should now be able to say, well, I would have thought that this was, okay, it is a promise. It's just sitting inside of a promise here. So then we can probably make this asynchronous. And then first we need to ensure that the image DB exists. So how about we do this? Check and create object store, and let's see if that's async. Yeah, that returns a promise. So we can just do an await on that, and then we'll call it ImageDB. And then there's the whole kind of upgrading thing. That's probably what that is, working with version numbers. Let's see if this has already been partly implemented though. Create object store. Yeah, so it looks like it is trying to do it here. So maybe I didn't even need to do all of that. Let's just get rid of this for now and just see what's going wrong here. So it looks for ImageDB version 1. And if an upgrade is needed, so that should get triggered. And let's just check that we're getting into there. Console.log hit. And then we'll just do a wipe on this. Clear site data. So there it says it was not found, but I bet if I refresh it again, oh, hang on, I've got preserve log for something I was doing earlier. Oop. And really that should be it should be checking that it exists the moment that composable is created. It doesn't really matter though, I just kind of want to get something working. So before I do that, just give it a name. Okay, so maybe you're supposed to upload it first. Yeah, and that's not getting hit. I wonder why that is. How about we do this? How about we just create that, see if we can get this into a working state, just to check that that is the problem. We'll go ahead and just create this from the beginning. Use image storer. So it's not until this gets called. And I'm just going to go ahead and call that anyway, because it might have something to do with what's going on here. Oh, but that doesn't get hit. And like, oh God, what a nightmare. Let's just try changing that number then. So the requested version 1. Okay. I didn't know this. I thought version numbers, I thought the version didn't even have to be a number. Okay, looks like it does. So let's just grab another one of these spots. And what I'd probably have to do is maybe like increment that or something like that. Try that again. All right, so that's working now. And then let's just throw that in again. And I believe I can now change the name to something like flower. Okay, so that just generates a random ID. Yeah, we're going to have to do a bit of work on this. Let's do the nebula one. So I should be able to copy that. If I refresh the page, paste the image ID in there, that works. Okay, so we just need to find a way to make this work a little bit more consistently. So for example, if I just flush this and then try it again, so now we've lost that database, and then refresh this, am I going to start getting those errors again? Let's try the nebula. Nope. Okay, so I don't know what was going on before, but it looks like it's working now. A quick refresh. Yeah, and so the way this works is if we jump into IndexedDB, there's our image database, and it's just, yeah, a key value store that is able to save a data file. So you can save files inside of IndexedDB. That's one of the cool things about it. And so now we've got a really nice way that we can easily save a file and then retrieve it by its ID. So now we'll just play around with this and make sure the interface looks how we want it to, the API looks how we want it to. And I might just split that in two, open up the index page and have a look at how this is being used. So we have the image storer. It models the blob file, so that's good. That totally makes sense. Image file, image storer, and so all we do is call store to store it. And my guess is that would automatically then set the URL. Yeah, in this case, the name. And then you can generate, and then it automatically sets the URL. Okay, so I think this API is pretty good. Just model the thing, model the blob file. And then when you're ready, so I'm just saying at update, so when this changes, go ahead and call that. But you could have like a button as well that says Q-button, and then you could have a @click event on there. This would probably make a bit more sense. So let's get rid of that, make something more realistic, and call this like upload. Right? Yeah. And then now if I refresh that page, the way this would work is you'd give it a file like that. You'd click on upload. And then now we've got the image name. And if you ever wanted to retrieve an image, then you would also use this image storer. And all you have to do is set the name and then the image shows up. Cool. So now we want to generalize this so it not only works with images, it works with other file types. And I think that is actually all we need to do. If I could probably just remove the word image here. A file's got a name, a file's got a blob, and then a file's got a URL. So we just change this to URL. So found image URL, we could change this to found file URL. And where else do we use URL? Yeah, instead of image URL, we change that to something else. So let's just get the .value ones first. And we'll just call this URL instead. Whoop. That might be a taken word. Did you mean URL? No, that should be fine. And maybe what we could do, oh, here we go. I need to set it there. Maybe we could say file URL here, but then just expose it as URL. Just because I feel weird about using the word URL internally. Just looks like something that should be part of the browser. So I don't want to confuse myself. So let's see how this works now. Just to check that it all still works fine. Okay, it looks like it doesn't. File URL. There might be something in here. Image storer, URL. And then we call it URL and return it. Let's try it again. Oh, I didn't press upload. I forgot I added that in. All right, so this is still working. And now what about this makes it related to images? So how about instead of images, we call this files? We can probably change all of those occurrences to files. Yep. Go. So get image URL. Let's just go through these things one at a time now. Get file URL, file ID. And we have a different name for this database now. Yeah, instead of image DB, let's just call this file. We probably don't even need the word DB at this point. Yeah, maybe files. Okay. So I'll just keep searching for the word image. So we get that out of the database, and then on success, let's just call this result. All right, and then we turn it into a URL. And then we'd probably want to have something on the composable so that we can download this as well. All right. Cool. So this is pretty much being genericized now to files. What else have we got here? Yeah, none of this looks like it needs to be specific to an image. Yeah, file. Again, if file not found, and then store file. Cool. So we call this store file now. No, I'm going to do that manually. Get all those occurrences and call it store file. And then this will be get file URL. Now I wonder if I did anything to point out that it's an image. So when we do get that URL, just do a refresh now. How do I know what the image extension is? So I might do something to figure out yeah, okay, so it's got type there. But then how does it know, let me just do a refresh. How does it know the extension? Okay, so in the name, it must add in .jpg. Oh, okay, so when I drag it on there, it keeps that extension as well. But then when we create the URL object, how does it know? Get file URL. Create object URL. Let's do a console.log on that. I'm interested to know what this looks like. All right, we can probably have one that we've already got here. So let's do this and copy that ID. Copy. Oh, I thought that would have worked. No. All right, let's do a refresh. Do the Nebula one again. Upload. Okay, so there's probably a place here where we're using the word file instead of files, plural. That would be my guess. Files, files, files. Object store. Nope, that's for storing. So let's do one. Let's have a look at getting. Oh, these are in the same. These are in the same function. No. Oh yeah, they are. So get and store. Maybe I just need to flush this because the database name hasn't been updated. Yeah, I'd say that that's what it is. So let's just wipe this, refresh it, and then we'll try uploading one again. All right, so it just doesn't need the .jpg for this to work. I think that's what's going on here. Yeah, if I click on here, it just goes blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay, and it just doesn't need .jpg. And then I guess when we're downloading something, we'd have to find a way to trigger it to download the blob and then also add the file name to the end of it. Yeah, okay. So what would happen if I did do just a plain file now? So let's jump into the index page. I might just comment a couple of these things out, or just that really. And then we want to see if we can maybe trigger a download on this. Or maybe what I'll do for now is just make a link. And when you click on that link, it sort of opens up the blob. Let's just see what that does. I don't even know, to be honest. Ref. And then we'll just say image store.url, and let's steal that if statement. There we go. Let's do a refresh. Just going to check on my bottom screen if I have any files. Here we go. I've got this wiring guide for solar power. Let's see what happens when I use that. Okay, we probably need some text in there as well. Blah, I'll do. Okay, and it opens it up. Cool. All right. That's pretty wicked. So now I should, whoops, let's bring this open again. Just going to shut that down and restart it so I get the URL. I can't remember what the, okay, just tacks a 1 onto the end. Let's see if using the image name works this time. So we should be able to go to Application, jump into our database and files, copy that, and just get rid of those quotes. There we go. So we get that link showing up. When I click on it, it works, even after a page refresh. Whoops. Okay, it's not coming up anymore. Maybe the link it made was actually something randomly generated. So let's try that again. Yeah, there we go. And it comes up. Cool. All right, so we've got a way to do all of that. The last thing I want to do is figure out how to just trigger a download. Let's see if Vue uses something for this. I always try to check Vue use first. Download. No, that's fine. So how about we say, I have a, I guess you'd call this a file URL. Well, let's see what it's officially called. Get file URL. And then when it's resolved, here we go. I have a URL that was, here we go, for a file that was created using that. And then I'll also tell it came from IndexedDB. The file came from IndexedDB. So now I want to know, how can I trigger a download with that file? Of that file. It'll figure it out. So now this should give me some code for that. All right, so it's just created like a download file from blob function. Let's just see if this works. So yeah, how about we do this? We'll create a new file for that, and we'll say download file from blob. So blob URL, and then what we want the file name to be. So I should be able to come up with something for that when I pull it out of IndexedDB. Okay. Yeah, okay, so let's try this. We'll come in here and we'll say download. Function download. And then download file from blob. And then the blob URL should just be the found file so the file URL, which is that one there. So then for now, I'll just say, if we don't have that, then return. And then the other thing it wants is a name for the file. And for that, we've got, yeah, we could just use name. I just got to figure out how to get more information about that file object. So when it gets out of the store, I think we get more information. So rather than just keeping the file URL, I wonder if we can keep, we can get the file itself. Yeah, so when I retrieve it, I want to see if we can get, we can set blob for the thing that was retrieved. Yeah, this isn't really a store anymore. It's a store and retriever, but we'll fix the semantics around that in a little bit later. So when we fetch it, oh no, this really is just a store. None of the retrieving is actually done in here. Okay, so what were we doing to retrieve the file? We were saying image storer dot name, and then when you change the name, yeah, okay, it is actually getting the file there and setting a file URL then. So then what we'll also do, I think, is get the blob as well. So get file URL, but I also want the actual object I got from the store. So we got result. What else do we get in the result? That's what I actually want to know. And then, yeah, maybe we actually set a result on here. All right, so let's just drag something on there, upload, copy that, refresh this, paste it in there. Okay, yeah, so that's our result. And then data is the file itself. Okay. Okay, so blob actually extends blob. Oh, we're saying blob or file there. What's the difference? Does file extend blob? Blob extend. Yeah, okay, I don't know. But we should now be able to say on our store file, can you also return, yeah, don't just return the URL. Let's turn this into an object and we'll say, give me the URL, but then also give me the result dot data as well. So the file itself, and we'll name that file. File? Yeah, file. So why doesn't it like this? Did we type what the prompt? Yeah, okay. So we're going to change that to the right type. So URL is a string, and then file. Yeah, we got an any type on there, so I should be able to just say file here. Really not worried about the typing for now. We're just going to get this working well. So let's change this to, why is that taking so long? Let's try giving TypeScript a restart. So when we say get file URL, on success, we should get the URL and the file. So I should be able to control space this. Yes, I think something's wrong with my editor. We can say, give me my file as file URL, and then also give me, oh, sorry, no, that's the URL. That's file URL. I found file URL. And then also give me the file itself. And we'll call that found file. What's wrong with that? I thought that was the syntax. Okay, because it needs to be set there. Okay, screw it. Let's just say const response is equal to that. Found file URL is equal to response dot. There we go. It's working now. The URL. Just make TypeScript happy. Okay, and now we should be able to say the blob dot value, and I believe we're going to need some renaming here, is response dot file. Okay, so that should mean we can easily download that blob now. Yeah, this part needs to be changed. Response. Const response is equal to that. Hang on, what was it doing before? Yeah, file URL. And then we can say const file URL is equal to response dot URL. And now we should have a blob that is constantly up to date. So when we store it, it gets set. And then when we retrieve it, it also gets set as well. File URL. Why doesn't it like that? I think it's because it can be undefined. And it should just be file URL. Okay, so now we give it the URL. We give it the blob. And we probably just want to check for that as well. Oh no, there should be an or. Or we don't have a blob, then return. I don't know why it's not happy with that. Oh, this is for the name. Yeah, so now we should be able to grab the name from this. That's right. That's why we wanted to do this all along. Dot name. And really, we want it to be a file at this point, not a blob. I wonder if I can just type it as a file. Because I think file extends blob. Oh, I did actually tell it that I'd have a blob URL. That's right, but we only needed the blob to get the file name. Okay, so file URL, blob.value dot, and we should be able to find its name now. Yeah, it's that one there. So what's it got wrong with this? Oh, I haven't imported it. Didn't I? No, that's imported. Oh, okay, something weird is going on with my editor. Use, no, what do we call this? I'm just going to copy that. And that's coming from // download file. Yeah, what's going on there? I never did an export. I just copy pasted it from ChatGPT like a noob. So we should now be able to do a download. So let's see if we can do that now. So come down here and let's just create a button for this, Q-button. And now when you click on that, we want to say image storer dot download. And let's just see if that works. So I'll start by just drag and dropping that PDF on there. There's my file. And we'll try a download. Nothing happened. Probably because I need to upload that first because it was missing some information. When I do a download, it works. Cool. Okay, so obviously a lot of this UI isn't quite right, but now we've got a way to download a file. We should be able to figure some other things out, like the file type as well. So maybe I'll make a few of those things a little bit more easy to see. Yeah, let's change this from name actually to ID. That will be ID. That. I think that's all of them. Yeah, so if we set that equal to ID, because then I want the name to actually be the name. So we'll say const name is equal to computed. And I'm just going to do a return there on the file's name. And we'll just check that it actually exists. And then here, we can actually then just say name.value. And how about we just coerce that to make things simpler? Well, it's not coercion. I used the wrong words there, but that's okay. And what else do we have on our blob? So blob.value dot. We have the size. I think the type is what I'm most interested in though. Yeah, so let's cut that. And we'll say const type is equal to. All right. And now let's have a look at the type and we'll have a look at the name as well. So we'll expose the name. This is going well. So we got the name. We won't be able to use that anymore to search for. Yeah, so we actually want to call this the ID. So that's the ID. And we won't be able to change the name of the file, at least not at this lower level. So the way we'll change files is kind of like higher up in the chain. So name will essentially be the original name. I'm not exposing the ID, so let's do that. Why doesn't it like that? I thought we... Am I going crazy? I thought I set that to ID. Did I not? Yeah, we changed it from name to ID. Store file. Oh God, I'm losing it. Oh, I accidentally renamed it to... Oh, okay, I missed that. Oh, God. All of those should actually be ID. I think my editor accidentally did some weird auto-completion there. Okay. So now we can model the ID there. Let's just do a Q input. I'm just going to copy paste that one. And we're going to make this one disabled. And instead of VueModel, we'll say model value, and that's just going to be the name of the file. Again, this can't be changed because at this lower level, it's going to be raw. So now we can put the ID in there. It should show us the name. And let's just quickly change this to download. So label is equal to download. Just to be cool, we'll give it a color equal to indigo. Nice. All right. Again, let's throw something in there. Where are my images? Nebula. There we go. Okay, the name slots into place. We can do an upload for that. If I control click this blur now, I can see, well, there's the image and it's made that blob for me. And then if I click on download, I can download the image. And we've now got a really cool kind of API for working. Yeah, get rid of that. We've got a really cool API for being able to work with that. So now I just want to make sure this API can kind of be used with a backend as well. So you should be able to swap this out because eventually this concept then turns into a driver. So ID, yes, you would have an ID for it on the back end and a name, which would be the name that you upload it with. I'm pretty sure all file providers tend to have that. Oh, the other thing I wanted to see is the type. So let's just whack that out here. It's not being set. Oh, there we go. Yeah, image/JPEG, so that is working. So storing, yeah, you would have that Boolean. Is it doing anything right now? No, it's not. So you do something like this. You just say, yeah, probably at this point here, storing dot values equal to true. And I'll just be naive for now and just assume there's no errors and then set that equal to false. Okay, so yes, you would definitely have that as it hits the back end. You would have, yeah, so the blob, especially with large files, you probably actually wouldn't have a blob. So this is something I need to think about. Can we just not expose it here? Yeah, well, you would have the blob. You would have a blob for uploads, but you wouldn't call this blob. At this point, we'd probably just call it file. And let's do that. Let's see if we end up with any clashes there. I want to make sure it's the right casing as well. Blob, blob, blob. And I don't see the word file anywhere else, so let's do that. So the only, yeah, so that's where it gets modeled there. The problem is we're also using it for the response. Currently, that's actually coming from a blob. So what we would actually have to do is we'd have to have an internal version of that blob, which is the response. So let's just call this const internal blob. And the reason is we don't want to have to create a whole new blob file whenever we receive it from the back end. So if we get a file from the back end, we're not going to then convert that file into a blob. That's just silly. So essentially, we don't want to expose this blob in the API. Okay, so where's all the times I use blob? Oh, I wrote blog again. Seems to be nowhere. Oh no, that's right. We renamed it we changed it to file. Okay, so when we find it, we're actually saying internal blob, or we'll call that internal file. I just got to figure out when to use the internal file instead. If not, file. Yeah, okay, so that will stay the same. We store the file. Yeah, and get a URL back. So none of that breaks the API if you were building a backend version. Yeah, so here we use download file from blob. Call this file internal. And then, of course, if it was a backend version, you would trigger this file download a different way. Now for the name, again, we're going to use the internal one. And then if you were using some sort of a backend, this would be equal to like response.name.value.name or something like that. And we don't expose the internal file. So hopefully that'll still all work. Let's just do a little bit of testing here. We'll give it Nebula again. Upload Nebula. We get blah, or we can see it. We can still download it. But now the only file being exposed to the API is the one that we basically model here on that input form. So this would work with any backend. And I can still paste that in there, view it, and download it. All right, I think this is done. So now that this is done, we can start using it in our app. What have I got wrong here? Get image. Yeah, it looks like we don't really need this anymore. That was doing something else. That and that. These are the three that we need. I'm going to steal all of those, and bring it into this project that we were working on. And we'll now have helpers, and I'm going to call this use, maybe just use file. What did I call it in the other one? Yeah, it was use image storer, but yeah, now it's not just storing, it's also retrieving. So we'll create a composable for this. We'll call it use file. And we'll give it a folder for sure. New folder, use file. Drag that in there. Paste these in here. Well, let's just cut that, paste it in there. And change that to use file. And we don't need use image storer anymore. Yep. And we are good to go. And now we can push on. So we want to have the concept of a resource now. So let me just open up this app. Let me see if I can just find my live stream on YouTube. Here's this app. And I believe the page we're working on was lessons. That's fine. Cruise out of this. Yeah, so now what we want to be able to do is essentially create resources. And those resources will have a many-to-many relationship, and they can be attached to individual lessons. So in a lesson, you might have like some nodes, or you might have an image file or like a zip file, and the user is then going to be able to download those resources. So this is going to be really cool, and it'll be fun to model as well. So I can get out of this project, close all that out, get out of it, and now we can start building. All right, that was productive. We can close out of this. I don't think I'll need ChatGPT anymore. And we can go ahead and get started. So I believe the word I'm going to use is a resource. And we'll have a many-to-many relationship between a lesson and a resource. So that'll be a resource lesson, QRST, yeah. So let's say Hygiene new module. Oops, Hygiene module new. This is going to be called a resource. And then we'll say Hygiene module new resource lesson. QRS, no, lesson resource. Lesson resource, because you do it alphabetically. L first and then an R. That's what I like to follow. All right, so let's go ahead and build those out now. We've got a lesson resource, split that, and then we've also got a resource. All right, so I might even go full screen here for a little while. Our lesson resource is going to have a ID. Rather than it automatically being created, oh no, that does need to be automatically. So this is also going to have a lesson underscore ID, which is going to be a string. And then also a resource ID, which will be a string. And I don't even need to do the many-to-many relationship because of some of the stuff that we've built recently with many-to-many relationships with the bulk updater. So that'll be awesome. Now, for a resource, it's going to have a, it would have a name, so we'll give it a name. And you probably give it a URL as well. Yeah, so we're going to get, let me just think about this. So we'll get an ID back from this. And I want to use the ID that I get from the file creator. So when I create a new resource, ideally you create the file first, and then you set the ID equal to that file. No, you know what? I think I would actually want to keep those two concepts separate. So then rather than URL, let's call this file underscore ID. And that's what we'll set to the ID of that file. Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. Anyway, we'll see how it pans out. So now we want a many-to-many relationship. I'm just going to steal some of the stuff we had with, what was it with? Notes. There we go. So we have a note user concept. So if I go to a note, that's where we have a belongs to menu. So I'm just going to steal that concept. And I'll just jump back into that note so I can use this as a reference because I always forget the bits and pieces with this. So pull in that decorator. So it belongs to many resources. No, not resources. Lessons. And it does that via the lesson resource pivot table. Now the first one is the ID of the thing itself. So in this case, it would be the resource underscore ID. And then of course that would then be the lesson underscore ID. And then this is lessons, and that's going to be an array of lessons. Cool. That's the hard part. So we got a resource, and then the other side of this is the lesson.ts. Now it's got a belongs to many relationship, very similar concept here, and it has got many resources. So we can send in here resource via the lesson resource model, and I just need to swap these lesson ID, resource ID, so that it can find it. And then of course, instead of lessons, this is then resources, and that's going to be an array of resources. Cool. Now, one thing I don't want to forget, I forgot this last time and it really stung me, it took me ages to figure it out, is that this has to have a composite key. So it's got lesson ID, yeah, resource ID. All right. And I think that's about it. So the relationships are set up, and okay, that nothing has to change on the lesson. And I believe everything on the resource looks good. It's got a name and a file ID. All right. And I think we're good to go. So now let's jump into that lesson page, manage lessons page. And essentially, we want to be able to create resources and then attach them to lessons. Okay, so let's come down here. And we'll call this a resource model collection. Use model collection. We'll send that in there resource. And we're just going to copy paste one of these concepts here. Man, I can't wait to turn this into its own component. It's going to make our lives so much easier. So that's that one. I'm going to grab you. And I really should be putting these in their own components. I really just could not be bothered yet. Yeah, so resource columns, I'll have to create that. Then for the body, we got the name of it. There is no body. And then this is the cool part. A resource has got many, if I can kick my brain into gear, lessons. Whereas really it would make more sense to do the opposite. Just create your resources. And then on the lesson, that's where you would attach them. So I'm actually going to get rid of that. We'll keep destroy in there. So we got name. Let me just pull up resource again for reference. And then you've got your file. Okay, so it really is that easy. Now this is the part that might require a little bit of thinking. So when this updates, we then need to attach that file to the resource. So what we should do here instead is maybe say at update model value. I'll just do this at least for now. And then we'll say we'll have a function here that's called update resources, update resource file. Ah, this autocomplete's driving me nuts. And that will send through the file. What is it? Does it say blob here? How does it identify? Yeah, okay. Oh, that shouldn't be an input. That should be a file. File. Okay, and it just types it as any. So I'm actually going to type this here as a file. All right. So model file's being sent down. So why has it got a problem with that? Maybe it wants this to be typed as any. No, okay, I'm just going to leave that for now. Let's come up here. And then we can say, I'll make this an async function. And then I can start exploring ways that we can make this as simple as possible. So the next thing is we need our resource columns. So we'll jump into user columns. We're just going to duplicate that, call it resource columns. Resource columns, it's got a name. It's got a file. And then the destroy column as well. Oh, need a sneeze. Excuse me. So we can say file there, and I'll just do a console.log to check if that's working. And it's probably going to need the resources as well. So resource is equal to a resource. Make sure that was imported correctly. Yeah, it's coming from modules. And we'll also console.log that. So when the time comes, we can check it. And then here we can just say scope.row. So we should have everything we need to then attach, basically create the file and then attach it to that resource. Okay. Let's see what this looks like. See what we're missing. Okay, so it's called notes currently. We need to change that to resources. Resource columns needs to get imported. And we'll just slowly come down here. We've got the name being modeled. That's correct because a resource does have a name. I still don't know why this is complaining. Model value is missing in type. Oh, then it actually wants the model value itself. So what we'll do, I reckon, is maybe just set this equal to the name. Yeah, actually, I don't know. Ugh. Maybe just like an empty string for now while I think about what that should be. Yeah, because it wants it to be the file. Oh, man. All right. I really don't know how I'm going to get that to work. Yeah. All right. That should do for now. Let's just see what we've got here. So now when we click on create, that creates a resource for us. It still blows my mind how easy this stuff is. Oh, we got some console.logs going on here. That's all right. I'll fix that later. And we'll call this maybe Nebula. Refresh the page, check that the updates are working, and they are. So now, the way I want to do this actually is drag and drop. So that did work. We get the file, and then we get the row. The problem is I kind of just want to show a string here. I don't actually want to model the file. Yeah, so this is actually, I just have to think about how this is going to be tackled. But we can cover that in a little bit. So the next thing we want is const files, I guess file service is equal to use file. And then this is where the magic happens. File service.file.value is equal to that file. And then we can say, hey, file service, I want you to store that file. And what does it want here again? God, I can't even remember. Oh, no, it doesn't need anything. All right, so we're doing a wait on that. And how about we say const result is equal to that? I can't remember what I get for the result. So what we get back is the file URL. Yeah, that probably actually makes sense. The problem is, I wonder if I can just use that URL directly on a page refresh. All right, let's test that. So I have to open that project again, of which I do not remember what it was called. I don't know. Uh, index deep, no, not called that. Bugger, I can't remember. Here we go, store URL Quasar. Okay, so let's say Quasar dev on that. And what I wanted to see is if I can download, I'm gonna put that file in there, upload it, open it in a new tab. Now, can I just reuse that URL? Yeah, no, I can't, because if I refresh that, that actually doesn't work anymore. So this file actually needs to be made every single time you want to use the URL, which means that we kind of need an interesting API around this. Yeah, all right. So next, we've now created that file. We need to store its ID. And so we don't actually care about the result of that. We care about the ID. So have I got the ID of it? Yeah, we do. That's the ID there. Maybe that should be returned after a store. Yeah, let's do that actually. So when we store it, how about this? We say URL is equal to that, but then also give me the ID, which will be, does it come from the response? Response dot file dot, yeah, no, the ID isn't in that. That's in the IndexedDB store. So how does it figure out the ID then? Or maybe it's this one here, the one that gets generated for us. Okay, I thought IndexedDB generated it. Oh no, so it was me. I was generating it there with that. Okay, so now we get the URL and the ID back. Is that going to break something here though? I don't think so. What errors do we have here? That's fine, and that's fine. All right. Sweet, we're getting closer. So now we want to say const is equal to that. And this is going to be ID, and we'll call that file ID. Is it okay with that? Property ID does not exist on ID any. Okay, or undefined, because it could be undefined. Okay, so let's do this. Const response, and then we'll say if response, then we should be able to, yeah, confidently get the ID and the URL. And now we can say this is actually the form, I believe. So we should actually call this resource form. Resource, we can actually do this directly now, I'm pretty sure. Resource form dot file ID is equal to whatever the response dot ID is. Okay, so the resource gets created. We drag and drop a file on there. And now we go to application, files. There we go. The file exists, provided that is the new one I just added there. You know what? Let's wipe this and actually test it again. It's probably better. Yep. So the file lands in there. And then if we go into the resource, so here's our resources database. We did not get a file ID back. All right, that's information. So let's do a console.log on this and just see what is going on. And do that. And then we'll slowly wade our way in and get some more info. Let's try Nebula again. Oh man, I need to fix some of these console.logs from the last thing I did. Right, there's an ID there. Okay, so it might have to do with this object that gets sent through here. So we send through the scope.row. Okay, so there's a form on the scope.row. It's not what I thought it was. All right, so it's actually a bulk update form or something. I don't know. No, it's not. You know what? We'll just send through the form. Scope.row.form. Okay. So now that's a resource form. I'm just going to type that as any. Oh no, now we can use bulk update form and we can just send through resource here. Honestly, not that the typing matters at this point. Why would that not be okay with? ID and lesson. I thought resource had. Yeah, file ID. Oh, whoops. These need to be typed as strings. Thank you, TypeScript. Maybe give it a quick restart. Come on. Oh no, that's the response. Okay, that was actually correct. Now we've lost the error there, and I think this might be working now. So let's try again. Nebula gets dragged onto there. And now we jump into application, resources, do a quick refresh on that. And it's got a file ID. So using that file ID, we should be able to find it from the store and then display that file. So what we could do, yeah, how about we say if it's got a file ID, we don't show this. So we could say v-if scope.row.form.file ID. If it does not have a file ID, then I want you to show that. And then we'll have a div here, maybe for a v-else, and then maybe just like a way that you can download it. How about a button? Yeah, let's create a button there. We should be able to do that raw, so we can just put it directly on there without wrapping it. And then we'll set the label equal to download and color equal to indigo, maybe just like a brightish indigo. And then when you click on this, we'll first have to set the file and then download it. So yeah, I'll have to do some more thinking on how this is going to work because doing two files at the same time might not work with this setup. So file service dot name is equal to scope.row.form.file ID. So we grab that file ID. And now that that's been changed, we should be able to download it. I think. And maybe we could actually say here, get the files. No, that's fine. Just leave it at download. No, we can do this. So let's do this. Download. Oh, you know what? We don't even need the word download. Let's just give it the file name in there. And then it'll be kind of obvious that when you click on it, you can download. Or maybe we'll add an icon to it. Yeah, here we go. Icon is equal to MDI download. And then we say the label is equal to scope.row.form. And then the name of that, so really it'll just be the same as what's on the left side here. So we don't actually need the name. We'll just have a download button. So we don't need a label at all. There we go. So let's see if that works though. It does not. So let's just remind myself. I think we need a bit of work with the API because this is not making a lot of sense to me. Yeah, so let's go file service. We'll find download in there. It needs a file URL. And in order to, how does it get a file URL? Yeah, you set the ID, not the, that should be ID. Dot value. We'd actually be safe to return this as a reactive. Like so. So let's go ahead and do that. So I don't need the dot value anymore. Okay. So the file ID gets set. Let's just test this. No. I think it's calling it too early. Because after the ID gets set, we get the file URL. Yeah. So really we kind of need a way to have like many files. Because we need one of these set up for every row, at least to make this easier to use. Because right now this is a little bit untenable. Unless you say you can send the ID in there. Yeah, how about this? We make this async. This might be a temporary solution. And you can receive an ID. We'll call this ID param. That's going to be optional. And then I can say here, if you gave me an ID, problem is we're going to get a double call here, but I'm not going to worry about that yet. And how about this? Async function on ID change, maybe something like that. All right, we can probably cut all of that. And then I can just paste this directly in here. Although I like to be a bit more explicit. Await on ID change. Okay, so if you give me an ID, then I'm going to await on ID change. And I'm also going to set that ID. So we say ID.value is equal to that new ID that you passed through, which means that I should be able to simplify this a little bit. So we make that async. I mean, that doesn't really do anything at this point, but we can just do, yeah, you know what, let's get rid of that. I mean, it could be, it doesn't matter at this point. Let's just push forward. And then all I have to do is actually send through the ID like that. And that simplifies things dramatically. So now I can actually do this in a one-liner, which makes me very happy. And that download works. Oh my God, this is cool. And maybe you got another one that is just to open it up. Yeah, so how about this? We've wrapped this in a div. We put the VLs on the div. And then first of all, you can download it. But then another thing you can do is MDI, and I can't remember what this is called, but it's like open in new tab or something like that. But, oh, no, that is it. Okay. And then we make this flat, and then maybe we just make these both a little bit smaller. Yeah, make this maybe not smaller, but dense. And lighten that up a bit. No, it looks disabled if I do that. Maybe darken it up. Yeah, it looks good. And we'll make you unelevated. You're flat. And then we'll just check our cheeky margin in there. Q margin on the right side and extra small should be enough. Yeah, make this dense as well. Now we can, oops, that's still on download. at click, we'll say open URL. You know what? I couldn't be bothered building this right now because we're going to have to do some waiting in there as well. Yeah, I think being able to deal with multiple files is probably going to be important because at the moment it's a little bit untenable. So I need to find a way to make that simple. Okay, so let's get rid of that for now. That's totally fine. And the feature is implemented. Oh, it should be that now. So that code's not too bad. I want to make it simpler. I think we can do better. But yeah, like currently you say, hey, when we get a change on this, then just go ahead and create a file and then set the ID. This could be a one-liner. I don't know. It's good. What can we abstract here? So yeah, the problem is that the knowledge that we need to give it is the file ID. So unless I create something much lower level in the batch updater itself, I don't think there's any way to avoid this code. There's probably some things we could do to standardize it and create some like composables maybe that sort of wrap the batch updater, but I think this will do for now. Okay, I'm happy with that. So now we got a way to come in here and say create, and we'll call this blah, and the file for that is flowers. So I put that in there. Now I can download it. There's my flowers. And it all works. Cool. Super cool. So now we've got a way to work with files. And we could totally do that with images as well. So you can now easily imagine you've got like a profile picture thing where you can come up there and drag and drop a file. And then it's very easy to then display that back to the user inside of a Quasar image component. So that's really awesome. And the next thing we'll do is now get this into the lessons page. So I believe it was like /course/Quasar, maybe this one here. Oh, I changed the name of it. I'll get rid of the slug. Quasar-components. Yeah, when I was messing with stuff earlier. How about that? Cool, so that works now. We've got a comment section. We worked on this last time, so that comment section is working. Blah. Send that through. It shows up. Maybe we could do some stuff with ordering there. That's another thing I want to get done and simple, making it very easy to order things by when they're created. And now we want to create this resources tab. Oh, hang on. I forgot the connecting of the relationships. Yeah, I might do that and then I'll finish the stream. And then in the next stream, I'll add those on because I do have a bit of work I have to get done today as well. Okay, so a resource can be attached to a lesson. And this is the part that should be easy now based on the stuff we built before. So now all I should have to do, we should get nice typing as well, is find, yeah, here we go. Here's lessons. I'm going to open up the columns for that. And I'll create a new field here. And we'll call it resources. Resources. That's it. We've now got the cell in there. Actually, let me come back there and see where I put it. Yeah, it's just before destroy. Thought so, just wanted to double check. So I can steal what we've done with notes. Oh no, have I scrolled down too far? I think maybe I have. Yeah, but I can steal what I did with notes and then put that maybe here. Hang on, is it? Yeah, this is why I need to extract the components and stop being so lazy. All right, so this will be lessons. No, not lessons. Resources. And I should be able to close that out now. And this is going to be a lesson model collection. I don't know. Resource. We just really want to show all the resources here. Yeah, so let's come up here. I think by default, it actually is pulling all of them in. We don't have any pagination in place. Yeah, especially for prototyping. Okay, so keep it simple. Keep trying to complicate things. So we get all of our resources and show them in this list. Name, that's correct. ID, that all looks good. And we're modeling it on the... Man, that might be it. All right, let's see if this works. Resources. A lesson has got the Nebula resource. Refresh the page to check if it worked. And it did not. So I wonder what I missed here. Nebula. Yeah, so I think the problem is now that I've added something to lesson, I essentially need to recreate it in the database. Because it doesn't like that the structure has changed. I think that's what this is. Store.add record. Maybe that's not what it is. It's trying to create the relationship between a lesson and a resource. But it looks like maybe the lesson resource doesn't exist in the store yet, does it? No, there it is. Lesson underscore resources. Okay. Let's take another look at this. Nice to meet you too, Vian. So what are we... Let's figure out what we're adding here. All right, so it is when we add the lesson ID, resource ID. So it's adding the pivot table, which is causing the problem. So we'll come back into application. Has this got anything yet in it yet? So for the key path, that's set to ID. That's actually wrong. And I believe what happened was when I first created this, it had the wrong key path because I hadn't set the composite key yet. So let's delete that and do a refresh. That comes back into the database. But now the key path should be correct. Yeah. Cool. So it'd be cool if I can find ways to rectify this automatically for the developer, but I don't know. Let's try this again. I think that worked. Refresh the page. And there we go. So cool. So now we've got a way to attach resources. That's got Nebula and blah. That's got Nebula, and that one's got blah. Let's just do a refresh. And there we go. It works. We got those many-to-many relationships working. So the next part should be easy. I'm just going to get it to show, and then I'll finish this stream. But let's come in here and see if we can just get it to show up inside of our list of resources in that resources tab. Okay. Lesson page. We can scroll down here. Don't need that. And by the way, I'm just going to quickly get rid of those console logs. Where are they coming from? VueModel. Oh, okay. It's actually inside of this app. So VueModel. I've just put in a I put in a channel there and did a listener. So we just need to get rid of that. Okay. So now we can jump in here to view a video, jump into resources, and let's just see if we can get them to show up, and then we'll finish. So when we get our lesson, where's that? So that happens further up the chain, doesn't it? Yeah, it happens in the main layout or the lesson layout. No, where is it? Layouts, course layout, that's what we're calling it. So in the course layout, we get our lessons, and with our lessons, I also want to get the resources. And it should be as simple as that. Now when I get my lessons, the resources come in as well. So on the lesson page, lesson repo, and I should be able to just say dot with resources. Okay, so I'm just going to whack it in here in a pre-tag, see what we're working with. There's our lesson, and there's our resources. How cool is that? Now, we can just display them. So maybe, I don't know, in like a card with a section in there that's the title of the resource, and then you could do like an icon as well. So you could do a map. So how about this? We put this inside of a div. We do the for loop in the div so we can easily style it correctly. So inside of there, we have another div, which is then a class that's equal to a row. And this is going to be a class that's equal to, we'll keep it simple and say col4 for now. And then we can say v-4 resource in lesson.resources. And then we'll put an if in here just to make sure that we have that, that lesson. Okay, so of course this needs a key, and we can give it that with resource.id. We shouldn't need that question mark anymore because we have checked if the lesson exists. And now we can spit out here the resource.name. It's pretty easy at this point. There we go. And then we just want to have, I guess, a download button. And yeah, that'll probably do it. So I can probably put that in here as well. Maybe a Q space. And then you could have a description for the resource as well, but we can add that later in. Q button. And this will have an icon equal to MDI download. So you can download that resource. And to download it, we're going to need our file composable. So let's say const file service is equal to use file. Definitely think there's some work that we can do on the API for this, but that's for another time. And this is where we kind of do our magic here. File service dot download, and the ID is going to be resource dot file ID. And we'll just coerce that. We'll make that a empty string. Or you know what we could do? We could just say an if statement here. It's got a file ID to make that happy. But the other thing I'm going to do is add a little filter in here so that if it doesn't have a file, it doesn't even show up at all, just in case somebody adds a bunch of them and forgets to add the file to go with it. So we can say with resources, and it's pretty easy to then just say query, and query dot where the field is file ID is not null. So I think you can say, for example, it's probably better to do this actually. We'll just say record dot file ID, and I'm just going to coerce that to a Boolean. So now if I go to resources, we got Nebula with the file there. But if I attach another resource to this, so let's come in here and we'll jump into that page where we have our lessons set up. Yeah, so if there were to be no resource, no file and a resource, so let's create a new one. We'll just say here, no file for the name of that resource, and we'll attach it to this lesson. So this lesson is the QEditor lesson, QEditor, and we're going to give it that no file resource. come back here, refresh the page, resources. Yeah, and it's not showing up. Whereas if we come in here, so I'll do another refresh just to double check. If I come in here and actually give it a file now, come down here and, oops, I'm gonna drag and drop. Let's give it the flowers file. Back over here, refresh the page, resources, and now it shows up because it's got a file. How cool is that? And then the user can then just download the file so that they can get the resources for that lesson. Not a very useful resource, but it's pretty. And that's it. So now we're doing some pretty cool stuff here. We've made it quite easy to basically get all the data we need on this page. I think this can be better. I'm not really happy with the lesson page yet. I don't like that the data for this page is kind of separated from the course layout. So I'm going to explore some ways that I can do that a little bit better. Yeah, I don't really know for now. I just don't like that I kind of have to run all of this again. And maybe we just make it so that the whole course is pulled in on every page. I mean, it would just be simpler in terms of thinking through it. Yeah, anyway, doesn't matter for now. I'm gonna leave that. And I personally think the code is pretty straightforward. So adding the comments, super easy. Telling it which things we need to merge in so that the comment belongs to that user. And then when we get success, we just go ahead and get those comments again so that our comment shows up. Not the most efficient way to do it, but for a prototype, totally fine, especially since it runs very quickly since it's running on the user's computer. And by the way, I think we might be able to do this across screens. Let me create a new tab here. And I think I might be able to say this person is logged in as James. I can't remember if I tested it. And we'll say some comment and send that through. No, not currently, but I think we might be able to do something like this. Just give me a hot second. So that refreshes, that should show up now, and it does. So where's our comments? Yeah, so this is the comments indexer here. All right, so let's do this. Let's say on index persist. Yeah, so if an index happens in our application, we can hook into that broadcast event. So we can say if a comment has been indexed, this is something that I built recently, we can now take that message. We don't even need to do anything with it, to be honest. So let's just get rid of that part. And I'm just going to call index again. Or maybe we just do it when a comment is created. Yeah, how about this? On created, if a comment is created, rather than doing it this way by saying on success, redo the index, I'm going to do it here. And that means this is now happening globally across my tabs. So this is a broadcast event that can get picked up from any tab. Now that's kind of cool in this situation. Let's just check if it works first. I might be dreaming. Hey there, bud. Send that through. So it still shows up, but it also shows up on the other tab. Because what's happening is this broadcast event is going to be picked up on everything that's on that domain, on localhost 9000. So this onCreated event works across tabs, which is something a lot of people don't know that actually exists. So now you could have, for example, imagine prototyping this for somebody, and that this is all the code we had to do to get that to work. It's ridiculously simple. But now imagine prototyping for somebody and then being able to do this, having several users, so we can be like, oh, yep, let's just add another user in. So you go to your lessons page, and then we call this person Bonnie, And then she's also on that page. And then you can say here, and then Bonnie says, "Hi, everyone. Can I get a hand with something?" Sends that through, and we can actually show that that showed up in the other tabs as well. That's pretty freaking cool. And then, of course, you could even put them side by side just to show what it's like if they were chatting to each other. And then less relevant in the comment section, more relevant in a chatting app, but still pretty cool. Pretty cool. And then it just shows up here straight away. So it's kind of like, yeah, so it's kind of like a real-time app, but you didn't have to build any real-time logic. We just used broadcast events to go ahead and fetch the data again. So there we go. Hope you all enjoyed this one. We now got resources showing up. I know that looks horrendous. Maybe in the next video I'll make it look a little bit better. One thing I'm going to do is, let's just find that. Q, col, gutter, medium. That, by the way, that's why I wrap everything one layer deeper in a div, because sometimes this col gutter can mess with some of your other components. So it's usually best just to wrap things one more time when you're doing stuff with Flex, at least in my experience. There we go. And let's come in here and make this a row so that that button shows up correctly, and we'll say items center. There we go. So the button shows up correctly now, and we might just give it a nice color. Indigo dash 9. And unelevated. I don't like 2 levels of elevation. And dense. Or maybe it might actually look better if we just make it round. Yeah, there we go. So they can easily download that resource. You know what? I've actually changed my mind. Let's make it elevated. It's good for a download button because it feels like a big action. Cool. Comments, resources. How about we make this area a little bit bigger? Here's what I'm thinking. Let's just say height rather than max height. And that did not work. Why didn't that work? Height 100 view H. 100 view height. What would happen if I put it on there? It looked terrible. That's what would happen. So, okay, they're the tabs and they're the tab panels. Yeah, so maybe we could say here, height, 100 view height. Cool, so that works. But then I'll just subtract the panels as well. Oh, sorry, the tabs. Yeah, so we could do calc, and we'll just say 100 view height minus whatever the size is of all this other stuff, which is 48, I believe. 48 pixels. What's wrong with this? Ah, calc. Ah, the height is equal to a calc of that. Yeah, maybe the padding is also messing with that. Oh no, because we've also got the toolbar as well. So we need to subtract the toolbar, which is probably also 48. Yeah, there's probably slightly smarter ways to do this, but again, we're prototyping. So I have a tendency to overdo design type stuff when it really doesn't matter. And now we can scroll down, and it scrolls down to the perfect position. And then we could add a scroll on this. So let's just keep adding some comments in here till it hits the bottom, because I want to see how we would then do scrolling. Yeah, so at this point, it's probably best to do something like this for the scrolling. So resources. Tab panels. What would happen if I did a full height on this? And then for that card section, we did a col and then scroll. And then make this a column. Yeah, there we go. Not perfect, but not terrible either. I do want to get rid of, I usually do this actually in new apps. Just get rid of the padding on the Q tab panel component. And I do that globally because I find it pretty annoying. So Q tab panel. Padding 0 pixels. I just got to be careful because that might override it, and sometimes when I do want to change it. But yeah, now I can scroll up and down here, and then you can also scroll the comment area. How does YouTube do it? I'm just going to check this quickly on my bottom screen. I think they just might make it so you just scroll down the page. Oh man, there's so much stuff about Trump now. Yeah, okay, so they've got it all on the same scroll bar. Maybe I should just do that as well then. No, all right. So let's do this then. Let's get rid of this concept of a max height. Yeah, we just put it all in one scroll. I guess maybe that is simpler. Yep. Oh, but we will give it a min height. That's what I'll do, which I'm pretty sure is exactly what I had before, or similar to what I had before. Yeah. And then next up, we'll do the notes section. Cool. All right. Hope you all enjoyed this stream, and I'll see you in a later one.